Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's event with Ascelia Pharma. And with me today, I have the CEO, Magnus Corfitsen. The topic for today is the final outcome of the recently announced rights issue. And the session is a Q&A session, so no slides. Will be a discussion between me and Magnus and you as audience. And first of all, I would like to welcome all of you who participate in this event. And we will, of course, record this event, and both Ascelia Pharma and HC Capital will distribute it on our relevant digital channels afterwards. So, Magnus, congrats with the outcome, and please let's start. And due to the Q&A session, I will start with a very broad question. Please, Magnus, could you elaborate a little on the final outcome? How did it turn out?
Yeah, thanks, Klaus. It's great to be here and give an update. So yeah, I mean, our rights issue went really well. We are very pleased and humbled by the strong support from existing shareholders and new investors, so that we ended up having a fully subscribed rights issue of 105 million. So I think that's really a great outcome of the process, and that puts us well on track to deliver on our key strategic goals, which is getting a partnership in place for Orviglance and be able to submit an application for approval in the US in the middle of next year for Orviglance.
Thanks a lot, Magnus. And I would like to dive into this final outcome, just to emphasize for the investors what they should be aware of. Could you just briefly touch on when will the ordinary shares enter the custodian accounts of the individual investors?
Yeah, so this rights issue is a bit more sort of complicated process. So we have not been technically we've not been selling shares, we've been selling units. And if you think of that as, you could say, a package of 3 shares and 1 warrant that is put into 1 unit, then what is happening now is that the so-called BTU, betalt tegnat unit, paid for a unit, they are being traded until Friday next week, September 20. In the following week, it will be exchanged, and the actual delivery on people's bank account or depot will depend a little bit on the custodian bank, but it's going to be in the following week, so 2 weeks from now.
Thanks a lot, Magnus. If we look into, so you mentioned this about the units, and the units contain also a warrant called TL1. What is the runway for the company if you get fully subscription on the warrant as well? So you received 105 now gross. Could you dive a little into that as well, Magnus?
Yeah. So the true answer is that I don't know exactly how much money will come in. So what I do know is that the warrant is in March next year. There will be a calculation of an exercise price, which is going to be some kind of average price for a couple of weeks in March next year. And then for a period in April, so shortly afterwards, people can exercise the warrant. And the warrant is really attractive because it allows the holder of the warrant to purchase shares at a 30% discount to the trading price in March. There's also a minimum and a maximum value of the exercise price. So the minimum price for a share will be 1 kroner. The maximum price is going to be 3.38. So with approximately 20 million warrants, that translates into 20 million to let's say roughly 70 million. So that obviously has a big impact on how much money we will get in and how much money you could say will be available for extending the runway and other things. What we have also said is that we were going to spend at least half the proceeds from that transaction to pay down the convertible and the debt from Ascelia Capital, which has a total of 27.5 million.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And that's actually my next question, because in this announcement you sent out last week, you also mentioned Ascelia, and that's a part of the deal, of course. Could you just briefly touch upon the status on the Ascelia and the convertibles?
Yeah, so in February this year, we put in place a facility with Fenja to sort of increase flexibility on the back end of getting the phase readout, which came out early May. So there is today a convertible of 15 million and a loan of 20 million. That was originally planned to be repaid in May next year. As part of this rights issue, we have extended the repayment date to the end of next year, and we will repay half the convertible, so they will be able to convert less into equity, meaning less dilution for shareholders. But we'll repay 7.5. That's what we put in the prospectus.
Thanks a lot, Magnus. And then, you entered an agreement with the guarantors for this rights issue, but actually you didn't have to use this voucher, which is of course very positive. But this is for the investors, just so they know, this is kind of an insurance. So can you tell us a little about, have you seen anything whether they choose a cash compensation or would they like units instead as a payment?
Yeah, I mean, so you're absolutely right in terms of the structure of a guaranteed rights issue is that you have some investors, guarantors, which, as you say, technically provide an insurance, saying that if subscription is below the level, and in our example it was 70 million, so we had subscription commitments from management and board, and then we had at a guaranteed level that would bring us to at least 70 million. And so what they have been providing is to say, even if there were not a single additional subscription during the subscription period, they would guarantee that there would be investments of at least 70 million. So we're very pleased with the strong support from shareholders and investors, so that we are now up to 105, which means that the guarantee element will not come in place. But as it is kind of an insurance, we still of course need to pay the fee. It's like if you have an insurance on your house, if it catches on fire, even if the house does not catch fire, you still need to pay the insurance.
Yes, that's important to know. And there's a question here coming. There's actually quite a lot of questions coming in here, but regarding the warrants, and if we just expect the minimum amount to be subscribed, Magnus, just to be a little conservative, and with the recently 105 million gross, would that take you all the way to start 2026 in terms of funding?
Yeah, I mean, we're still we completed the transaction last week, and we haven't provided sort of an updated financial runway. I think it's so we're still putting working on finalizing budgets and having discussions with our board around that and how we prioritize the money. I think the obvious answer is, with more money we have a longer runway, but of course we need to be more specific than that. But right now we don't have, you could say, the final plan, final budget and business plan in place. So we'll come with that in due time. But I think it's I would say it's nothing dramatic. It's we're expanding the you would say the operations and focusing on the key activities as mentioned, partnering, getting that done, and being ready to submit in the middle of next year.
Thanks a lot. And just to recap what you have mentioned before about the timeline for the company, when it comes to, because now you have cash at least for thoroughly submission process, and also to find the right partner for you. So if we start off with partnering, Magnus, does the scope for partnering looks different now compared to before you got the 105 gross? Or I could phrase it otherwise. Can you look for other partners with the capital in the bank you have now compared to before?
No, I think the value of the financing in relation to partnering is more. I think it gives us better cards on the hand when we are having the negotiation with potential partners. So if before the rights issue, we could extend the runway, but we would have a very challenging financial situation when we consider the timelines that we're talking about. With the new financing in place, we have a much better negotiation position to be able to get the right deal terms for Ascelia and value to shareholders compared to before doing the fundraising. So I think that's really important. There are lots of things that we are working on in terms of ensuring and maximizing the value of the Orviglance franchise. So working with key opinion leaders, getting input to the regulatory process and pre-launch. So things such as presenting at conferences and creating a much more noise in the space, if you will, for Orviglance. We have a better opportunity to selectively do some important things there. So I think that's where the financing comes into play for the partnering. I think that's super important.
And you still expect to close some kind of partnering before you submit the NDA, is that right?
We've not really talked about sort of timing. So it kind of takes two to tango, or at least two. So we can have plans for when we want to do a partnership in place, but the timeline needs to be consistent with you could say the most attractive partner. So it also depends on their timelines in terms of how things progress, right? So a partner will be making a sort of a major decision. They will be investing to get access to the Orviglance asset, but they will on top of that make investments into the launch of the product. So they need to take a major investment decision, and of course that requires a good deal of time and some deep due diligence in terms of understanding the asset and the opportunity and everything. So in a partnering process, you could say we reach out to all the companies that we think are relevant potential partners, and then we educate them about the opportunity and so they get a good understanding of how that could fit their business and how that could drive value to their shareholders. And then once we are at that stage, then it's about agreeing on how to split the economics and the responsibilities.
Thanks a lot, Magnus. And when we talk about partnering, now we know that you have 100% focus on US to launch Orviglance, but you are looking for a partner globally also.
Yeah, so we will not build our own commercial team anywhere based on the plans as we have them today. So that means we're looking globally for partners. But of course, the US being almost half the global market, that is the most important partnership to make. And some partners have a structure today where they would say, if we should be interested, we want to have global rights, which means that having a partnership in a single country or in a group of countries or region would be a negative in terms of the companies that could potentially be global partners. So that we start with the US, that's the highest value market, and then depending on the outcome of that may be a US only deal, or it may be a global deal, or something else.
Thanks, Magnus. And then in terms of milestones, and I know this is a little sensible, but are you looking for a very high upfront payment, or are you looking more for a high royalty rate? What combination could be an answer as well?
Yeah, I think it's hard to tell. I think the answer is that we want to build, you could say, a partnership where we have the right party on the other side working together and making Orviglance a massive success. And then we need to share in the economics in a good way. I think a deal structure, I would strongly expect that we will have an upfront component, milestones, and a royalty component. And how that will be structured is obviously up for negotiation. But you would say if we think about the value of an asset that is $800 million global addressable market, then I think there's going to be a lot of value to a partner, because their investment timeline will start, you could say, soon when the partnership is struck. So within a reasonable time frame, not far from now, and their investment and time cost of capital is going to be relatively short, because they will join the Orviglance journey relatively shortly before the launch phase, whereas we and our shareholders have been carrying the investment in clinical studies for many years. So I think that should allow us to have some attractive economics in the partnership. So that's what we are pursuing.
There's a question here. I think it's a good question, but I think we can say yes to it. But on the other hand, do you need to secure overglance patents for Europe and Japanese market? And is there a threat that competitors will bring similar product to those markets because you have no patent protection?
Yeah, so you could say what we have said is that in US we have the orphan drug status, which gives us marketing exclusivity. So the FDA will not approve a similar product for 7 years, at least 7 years post-launch. For Europe, as of today, we don't have an orphan drug designation, so we don't have the orphan drug exclusivity, but we do have what is called, we expect to have marketing exclusivity, data exclusivity, and then marketing exclusivity, which is today 8 + 2 years. And then if you add an indication, you can get an additional year. So it's 10 to 11 years after approval, where a competitor in Europe will not be able to file for generic approval. If they do a full independent program with preclinical phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and that data package in itself is sufficient for approval, then they can launch in Europe. But that's quite time consuming and it's very expensive. And then they will, have a similar product as ours, which might be facing potential generic competition within some years, right? So I think we're well covered, and I think there are some other, similar type of protective elements in other, developed pharmaceutical markets. And we earlier mentioned also that we are having in development and a second generation overglance product, where we think that the patent protection and the value that could provide is also of good interest to us and to a partner.
And Magnus, do you see anything competitor-wise coming in the next couple of years?
No, not on the liver-specific MR space. I think that's encouraging. What we do see is that there is increased focus on using less gadolinium, because gadolinium have some health or some safety concerns and also environmental concerns. So we have tons of gadolinium coming into our drinking water, which is obviously not a good thing. So using less gadolinium will be good for the environment as well. So and we are we're leading that. We see some early phase studies on some injectable manganese compounds. Personally, I welcome that very much, because it just brings more, momentum on the manganese space. And we are late stage in the regulatory phase for manganese agents. So we're really far ahead.
Thanks a lot. And then jump to the other side, production-wise. You mentioned that before, Magnus, but maybe you can just give us a briefly update. Have you secured production facilities? And is it negligible to produce with a sales price of around $3,000 to $4,500? Can you comment on the production cost? Well, you better answer that question.
Yeah, so we have worked with a manufacturing partner in the US for many years. They have scaled up for commercial scale manufacturing, and they can produce what we need. I would say if we get more busy, then we will need to ask them to spend more time on, do more batches throughout the year. I think if they run at full capacity, then I think we have an amazing situation. So I think on the product supply side, I think we have scaled up to the level that is certainly adequate. So we have, even in the launch phase, where in the earliest days volume is not as big as it is at peak penetration, but I think we are covered for both situations in a good way. And what we've also said earlier is that we expect margins which are like in the branded pharmaceutical industry, so quite high gross margins.
Thanks a lot, Magnus. With the rights you secured, are there any parts of the timetable you mentioned earlier on that you can accelerate? Could you elaborate a little on that, Magnus? Is that possible?
I think it's fair to think of the timeline that we outlined for the NDA submission to be, we continue to be on track with that, and I think that's what we are expecting, right? So it's a lot of work, and we're working with advisors and consultants with deep technical expertise in various areas. to put together a very strong submission package. So what we also said is that we expect the clinical study report from the Sparkle study in early early Q4 this year, and that is kind of the finalization of Sparkle, and that is an important element of the pre-submission meeting that we will have, where we have announced that we expect to have the minutes from that meeting in Q1 next year. So you could basically say that is the meeting where you go to the FDA and you say, this is the data, and this is how we're going to present it to you, and this is how we're structuring everything, and following up on all the questions that have and feedback we have received from the FDA throughout the development period, where we've had a number of meetings with them, and we're saying, this is how we're addressing this. So we get a good sense of what we are planning to submit is also what they're expecting. And if they have some feedback saying, we think you should add this analysis, or you should do this kind of thing, then we have time to do that within the timeline that we have communicated.
That's very precisely. And then just a couple of questions about Oncoral. Have the timeline on Oncoral changed after you secured the money?
Yeah, not so much I would say the timeline. I mean, I'm personally dying to get going with the study, right? So I think it's a really, really interesting study, and we can unlock a lot of value with Oncoral. So I think with the team, all our efforts go to you could say the NDA submission and the partnering. So we're not really ready to initiate the study with Oncoral. So what we do have a plan that has been approved by both the FDA and other national regulatory authorities. We have a setup, we have a protocol, and there are some things that so things are in place to get going. But but we're focusing on the NDA submission and the partnering, and not on the start of the Oncoral study. But I'm really looking forward to when I can push the Oncoral study button.
For sure. There's a question coming in here about the partnering again. So with the strong value proposition of Orviglance, it's of course clear to this investor that you're going to find a good partner. What is the pushback you get from potential partners? Can you share that with us, since no one is announced yet?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, it does take quite a bit of time for people to have a look, right? So and there could be a lot of different reasons why a partner is a good fit or not so good fit. I think the most important thing is always to think of when another company brings this asset into their pipeline, does it make strategic sense for them? And from my perspective, as you could say, the small company, the biotech company, if we have a huge partner where I know that Orviglance is not strategically important, I should be, and I am very concerned that it might not get the attention it needs and will not be successful. So if you have companies with massive revenue, huge products, one example could be like Novo Nordisk. They are in a different therapeutic area, and they, it's way too big. Orviglance is just doesn't make any difference to their P&L. So they would not be a relevant partner for us, to take one extreme example. So I think that's what the partnering process is about: finding companies that have, you could say, that understands this and have a business model and a organizational setup that allows them to be effective in commercializing Orviglance, have the scale to do that, but not be, you would say, the multi-billion-dollar revenue companies that where Orviglance would not really make a big difference to them. So I think that's it needs to be you would say the strategic fit needs to be important. And then there are all kinds of other agendas. Some companies may have internal challenges, reorganizations, etc. And then the timing for them is just not the right one in terms of entering into new partnership, because then it's other agendas that dominate their internal, you would say, day. So I think that's I think it's not different for Orviglance compared to any other products. It's just about finding the right partners where there's a good strategic fit.
Thanks a lot, Magnus. I don't know if there's any more questions, so please post your questions and I will hand them over to Magnus. I don't think that's the case. So just to recap on the timeline, of course, we expect to get a Q3 report from Ascelia Pharma during Q4, and in Q4 we will also get the study report, and you will probably announce something about that. So that's what investors should look for the next 3 to 4 months. So by that said, first of all, I would like to thank you, Magnus, for participating, and I would like to thanks the audience for all the good questions. And by that, I will close today's session. So thanks a lot and enjoy your afternoon.
Yeah, thank you. Great to be here.